So it's time for another gardening week video, and as per my usual routine, I went out for a bike ride yesterday and went up the coast to Fleetwood, which is my kind of favourite routine ride really, because it's a lovely ride. It's all off-road and you've got all the scenery of the coast and everything. It's really lovely, and you say it's about 30 miles, which is kind of perfect for me because I'm not a big cyclist, but you know, that takes me about 2 hours. And I stop for a nice breakfast at a local cafe on the way, and yeah, it just makes for a lovely morning. And in the afternoon I think I sowed a load of seeds, but I'll talk about that later on. So today is Tuesday and down in the allotment again, and I'm doing odd jobs and doing a bit of planting, and I'll take you around while I do it. So I'm always trying to get at least one little maintenance job done each time I visit the allotment at the moment, because there's lots kind of accumulates over winter. So I've got the new door in last week, and I put a drip edge up here. Oh, I need to just put preservative on that, and so hopefully that will keep the door a little bit drier. So I also just planted some mange tout peas down the back of one of my low tunnels in between some lettuces, and put in the support strings, and I'm pretty pleased with the way that that's gone. I cleared one of the carrot tubs of, basically the slugs and snails had cleared it, and I've got 6 carrot tubs, but one of them, as I say, only had about half a dozen carrots left in it, so I decided to sacrifice those carrots. I actually left them in, but then I planted some peas in there, and again, okay with those. Those are sugar snaps. And then I put some radishes in, pretty pleased with those, a nice quality. I wasn't so pleased with the turnips, they're a bit spindly, but anyway, I put those in, interplanted with the cauliflowers. So I got quite a bit of planting done today. So it's Thursday today. Yesterday I was hiking in the hills, and today, just before I head off to the allotment, I just potted on these little potatoes, and they've got the canes in because they're going to grow really tall, so they need some support. And we'll be harvesting those in sort of late April, early May, just when our main crop potatoes from last year are kind of starting to sprout, losing their quality. So it's nice to have these beautiful, fresh, new, creamy, new potatoes, especially for baking. So yeah, pretty pleased with those. They looked really nice actually when I took them out of their pots. Really nice root system on them. You could just start to see the baby potatoes forming. So it's the end of Thursday, and I thought I'd just quickly show you the seeds that I've sown today, and I'll talk a little bit about why I've sown them, because I have noticed some confusion in the comments about what to sow, why people are sowing things at this time of year. So the first off are these leeks. I've sown them in a 12 cell tray, 24 cells in total, and these are leek pabella. And the reason I've sown these now is because I want early leeks. I don't think there's much point sowing leeks at this time of year because you're not going to be eating them until autumn, so there's loads of time for them to grow. So the only real reason to grow them now is to get them out of the way, or for an early crop. In my case, it's for an early crop. So next one are North Holland blood red onions, and I've sown those in a 40 cell tray. Now, I don't sow my onions now. I actually prefer to sow them kind of at the middle, well, early to the middle of February. And that's because I sow them in a small tray like this, and I don't want them in the tray for more than about 8 weeks. And so that's why I sow them a little bit later than a lot of people. But also I just noticed that if you sow them earlier, they're just really leggy and weak plants, and nowhere near as healthy as ones sown later on in February. So why have I sown this particular tray? Well, I've sown spring onions, salad onions. So North Holland blood red are a really nice salad onion. They don't overwinter very well, but sown now they do really nicely. And I need to sow a tray of salad onions every 2 weeks to keep up with the number of salad onions we eat. So basically I'm just on that sort of tempo. I chose North Holland blood red though because they're also a bulbing onion, and so if I found myself in a situation where a tray of bulbing onions failed to germinate, then I could use these North Holland blood red. And in order to do that, I've only sown 5 seeds per module, hoping for 4 seeds to germinate. And if any more than that germinate, then I'll just pull them out. Now, so that is quite a low density for salad onions, but it's worth it for me to have a bit lower density and have these in reserve just in case a tray of Red Baron or whatever sown in February failed to germinate. So that's my logic. It's kind of just a bit of contingency. Now I know some people do sow salad onion density, which might be at this time of year 7 or 8 seedlings per module, and then they kind of thin them out. I don't really like doing that. I find that when I thin them out, I'm disrupting the other onions. I'm creating a lot of smell, which might attract onion fly. So I just don't like doing it. I would much prefer just to sow slightly lower density. And it doesn't really matter because you just sow them closer together. So it's not a problem at all. So the next one that I've done are Zebrun. And the reason that I've sown these now is because I want these for interplanting. And just because the things that I'll be interplanting them with, they'll be ready to plant out kind of the beginning of March sort of time. And if I don't sow them now, well, maybe the middle of March. If I don't sow them now, they won't be big enough. So that's just why I'm doing it. So they won't necessarily be the healthiest plants, but they will at least be big enough to kind of cope with being interplanted in something else. They'll be tall enough to be growing above the interplant. Now I'm not exactly sure what interplant I'll be putting them in with, because I don't generally plan my interplants at that level of detail. There's so many opportunities for interplanting. I just, you know, whatever I'm planting, I think, what can I interplant into here as I go along? But generally speaking, I know I don't have dedicated bed space spare for Zebrun onions, and so I will be interplanting them somewhere. So that's basically the approach I'm taking. I've also just sown my first batch of first earlies potatoes, and these are Swift, and they're our favourite. Also wouldn't be sowing them, I guess. And they're really good. I mean, people say that they're ready in 75 days. Well, they're not really ready in 75 days at this time of year. I like to give them 90, and you get a way better crop if you do that. And I do recommend that when you're doing new potatoes, you sow the absolute minimum that you need at this time of year, because the harvest is going to be so much better if you leave them a few more weeks, you know, because they'll be growing with much higher light levels. Also, there's no need to chit them when you're sowing them at this time of year. You can sow them, and particularly, I mean, I think it doesn't make sense to sow them at this time of year unless you're germinating them somewhere warm. I obviously germinate all my stuff at home in the house, and you know, they'll be up within 5 or 6 days probably, even without chitting. So chitting is kind of pointless at this time of year for anything that's being germinated in the warmth of a house. It's a completely different story if you're germinating outside, but nobody's germinating new potatoes outside at the moment. So it's Saturday, finally managed to cut the lawn. That made all the difference. It looks much neater and tidier now. And it's only really because we've had such a dry and sunny January that I've managed to do it. Otherwise it was far too soggy earlier on in the month, but just perfect to give it a quick trim. And just finished filming the What Am I Sowing and Growing video for February and March. And yeah, that was quite a chore. I had everything all surrounding me, all the different seedling trays and everything. It takes quite a long time actually to film that video, so I hope it's worth it. All that's left now is to show you the harvest, and then we're done. So it's Sunday, and here's today's harvest. Volume's still picking up a little bit. I'll just walk you through it. So we've got field bean tops, crown prince squash from the store, parsley from the polytunnel, white and red onions from the store, golden red beetroot, yacon from the store, and then we've got colettes and potatoes straight from the tubs, And then in here we've got ochre, the last of the turnips until March, and Jerusalem artichokes. We won't have many of those left now. And we've got baby leeks, we've got loads of those. Lamb's lettuce and more lamb's lettuce there. Sprout tops and collet tops, those are gorgeous. Brussels sprouts, red and green. And then loads more kind of sprout tops and perennial kales, more little sprout tops here. Tuscan kales, green curly kales and all of that sort of thing. Purple sprouting broccoli at the back there. And then loads of spinach actually at the moment, so all of these and under there are all spinach. Then the last of the pak choy and the tatsoi, although tomorrow basically I'm sowing the spring crop of Asian greens. And then we've got winter miner's lettuce there, salad onions there, carrots, quite a nice selection there. These are the ones for the salads, the cooking ones. Radishes, I just did a video actually about how I'm growing radishes. And then the salad bases. And these are interesting actually only because this week I've got these Brighton kind of nice little hearts that harvested from hanging baskets. So I've still got 3 of those still to harvest, and I harvested 1 hanging basket today, and it's a nice way of getting a nice crunchy rib on your lettuce in the middle of winter, growing them in a hanging basket. High up they get the maximum amount of light, maximum amount of heat, and a real bonus addition to the salad mixes this time of year. So I think that is pretty much everything. A bit boring at this point, because everything's the same from week to week and there's not much variation, but that's going to start to change fairly soon, certainly before I get bored of this winter harvest. And I did notice when I was in the polytunnel today that I got the first flowers on the broad beans, so that's always exciting. So I think with that we'll call it a day. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.